Welcome back to part 2 of our conversation with Kevin MAKO, where he tells us why analyzing data, not just collecting it, is the key to your business's success, in addition to why you should never take equity in your clients' creations. Don't go anywhere. Part 2 is coming up.
Welcome to this edition of Peak Performers Podcast
with your host, Thor Conklin.
Thor will be sharing the necessary tools, strategies, and psychology you'll need to become a peak performer in any area of your life or business.
Thor Conklin here. We give you the tricks, the tips, the tools, the strategy, the technology, and the psychology peak performers use in order to get more done and execute at the highest level. If you know what to do but struggle with getting it all done, or simply want to raise your game to the next level, this podcast is for you. Sit back and enjoy. A couple things that you pointed out that I want to highlight here. One is you use the word cash. And I want to make sure that the audience understands there's a big difference between cash and profits. Yes, we're profitability consultants, but it's the cash. You've got to turn the profits into cash. And if you don't have the cash, that's when you go out of business. And you can't pay your bills with profits. You can't pay with anything except cash. Well, I guess you could pay it with some debt, but you need the cash. The other thing you just mentioned that I think is worth mentioning is you talked about when you put these processes in place, you get data. Now, I guarantee you there's a bunch of people that were listening that just kind of flew over, data, yeah, I got tons of data. What I don't care about the data because you're not analyzing the data. When you get the data, you've got to analyze it. Then you need to track it, you need to measure it, and then you need to pivot or adjust. So when you're getting this data, this feedback, you've got to make adjustments. And it sounds like you love doing that and you hone in on that and you make those necessary adjustments.
For sure. And that is tough. And, the big to even, before you go into those details with data, you have to figure out what is the most important things to my business? Or, let's even break it down. Let's look at the client, right? What is most, we're in an interesting firm. We take people's ideas, a lot of the time, a sketch on a napkin, just a rough concept. And we basically have to go through design, engineering, prototyping, get into production, help them get the patents filed, connect them with distributors so they can start selling it or angel networks so they can get into, funding rounds, crowdfunding, Kickstarter, that sort of stuff. Every product is unique. Every client is unique. So, if we look at that and look at data, I mean, you can look at very simple data points to start. For instance, for us, we said, well, how long does it take a client to go on an average project to go from sketch to production? And that's a pretty, in our business at least, that's a pretty easy number to ascertain, right? And I remember back in the early days, it would take, most design firms, it would take 2 to 3 years in development. And for the startup world, I said that's far too long. So year after year, we looked at all of our projects and we could see how long is it taking from this point till the end, and continue to shrink and shrink and shrink that. While at the simultaneously, you're looking at product defects and all these other issues in terms of the quality side, and saying, well, how can we improve all of those elements? So you're essentially looking at a very simple number here, which is time to deliver. And most companies have some variant of time to deliver, right? So you don't necessarily need to get into these crazy big data, AI analytics and all this sort of stuff. Just look at the big picture. What's important to your clients? Survey. You want to start with some basic numbers. Survey 10 of your clients or prospective clients and ask them what they want. Yeah. Right. Ask them 2 or 3 or 4 key questions, and it'll very quickly become clear to you. Is it a price play, a quality play? Is it a certain feature set that they're looking for? Is it a certain time frame that they want it in? And you're all of a sudden in the big data game. Yeah. with just those basic numbers, right?
Yeah. You got to ask the questions. We have clients that literally want to talk once a month. They're like, look, we want to get together for an hour and a half. That's all we want to do. And other clients, they said, look, every morning at 7 a.m., I want to talk to you for 5 minutes. I want to get my day on plan. So it's be flexible, but you got to ask the questions. If you just come out of a box and say, this is what we offer. And I want to touch on this a little bit. We're both coming up on our second decade of being entrepreneurs and being in business for ourselves. What have you noticed as times changed? What have you noticed with your customers? I mean, we all go into business saying, okay, this is what I do, this is who we are, this is who we serve, right? And then we wake up one day and go, wow, I don't do that anymore. What's changed for you?
I think that for sure, year after year, we have more and more amazing clients, amazing customers, people who really fit perfectly with the business model that we've essentially created. Both us adapting to the market and the market adapting to itself, and the market adapting to us. We're very much a leader. We were basically the first design firm in physical products to essentially take a product idea in the consumer product space from sketch on a napkin to production, but tailor that to the startup world. Most kind of, if you looked at, hardcore engineering firms, and there's tons of amazing firms, they're mostly focused on big corporate clients.
Right.
One piece of their overall development puzzle, very specific or unique service offerings, very difficult to work with for a startup. So that was the ideation from the beginning. 10 years ago, it all started with a simple concept when I was getting asked a few times, hey, can you tweak something for me? I've got this idea. I said, there's got to be an easier way for somebody with a physical product idea to go from that concept in their head and get it to production and on the shelves. So that was the basics. And then from that, though, we were essentially creating a new industry. It was very unique for startups, especially if you look 10 years ago, very rare for hardware startups to kind of get off the ground with their invention idea. There were, there's many ways of doing it before this, but it was very rare that you'd see essentially hardware acceleration to take it from idea to store shelves, all under one roof, all with a startup client, all on a budget, within a very quick time frame. So, it was essentially we were somewhat creating a new market, if you will. So for us, there was a lot of education, a lot of hand-holding, a lot of basically helping people understand that it's easy to work with us through those steps, but this is the way that it works. And this is the way that we've essentially simplified it for you, so you don't have to go to 8, 9, or 10 different places and do all of these kind of tasks that you used to 20 years ago. So definitely in terms of like how the clients have changed, I find that over the last 10 years, call it maybe a stroke of luck or just an amazing way that the world is going, or I don't know what, but entrepreneurialism in general is absolutely booming. And not just as an idea, but as a complete from the top to the bottom of at every government level, at every corporate level, in the broader global community, there are tons of different support networks that have been created to help support, facilitate, grow, and accelerate entrepreneurship. And that has substantially helped with our business to basically encourage more and more people that have that idea, that are looking to essentially change their lives with the product, to actually step out into the void, if you will, take the big risk and essentially soften the landing for actually getting out and taking that bold step.
Will you ever partner with a potential client? They come in and say, look, I've got this idea, but I don't have any funding. Have you ever considered partnering with them?
Well, because we deal directly with startups, there's some really unique ways that our design firm operates, as opposed to traditional big engineering houses and whatnot. And one of the big ones is we actually don't take any equity or any percentage of any client.
So the bigger firms do that?
That's very unique, and it's simply because we are dealing with people's kind of hopes and dreams. Some of our clients have been sitting on their product ideas for like 30, 40 years, right? Afraid to take that out into the world. So we almost have to operate, let's call it excessively over the top ethically, so that nobody would ever even have the slightest fear that we would ever take or impede on their product idea whatsoever. Got it. So that's a pretty unique element about our business. But we really we really prioritize kind of transparency and openness and all of these sorts of things. And of course, one of those big elements is we never want we would never want to take some equity from somebody, because first of all, in the early stages of development, it's the most expensive equity you will ever give away. So, I mean, we generally recommend against it. As you can imagine, the further you get, the more valuable in multiples your business becomes, the much higher amount of money you can raise at a much lower percentage of equity. And there's great groups out there that do that, right? So for us, we're actually more interested in setting our clients up with like angel network groups or private investment groups or stuff like that, where they can where they can essentially move from there using the best partners in what they do. For us, we're very good at design and engineering and getting stuff essentially from that idea to production. So we really don't try and deviate at all from that core skill set.
Okay, that's fair. And you're saying some of the larger firms actually do or will participate, and sometimes there's a conflict of interest.
Well, very much so. I mean, it's almost entirely a conflict of interest because you're very closely connected with the firm that is designing your product, right? It's a very collaborative and intimate experience between the firm and the designers, of course, that are working at our firm, and the inventor, startup, or ideator that has come up with the idea.
All right, so here's what I want to do. For the next couple minutes, I want to kind of run a scenario. All right, I'm coming to you. I'm like, Kevin, I've got an idea. Here it is. I've got a napkin. I came up with this. I was drinking some tequila last night, and I've come up with the best idea ever. Walk me through the process so the audience can get an idea of what the process is and then what the costs are. And again,
yeah, sure.
I won't hold you to those numbers.
Yeah, happy to go through all that. It's it's helpful to kind of dig a bit into the details of this sort of stuff. And you know what? It's transferable not just with hardware, because I know many of your listeners are probably are interested in other areas of business too. But there's a lot of kind of transferable things here. So first of all, you'd be surprised more often than you think. We do get people coming to us saying that they were out drinking last night and they came up with the best idea you've ever heard. And a lot of the time, it's pretty good, right? So yeah, definitely don't discount those sorts of ideas that might happen at at one in the morning after a couple tequilas. So in terms of the actual process, we try and keep it as straightforward as possible. Essentially, there's design work. Then we look to kind of take that digital design and turn it into a physical working kind of finalized prototype, and then we go into production. In there, at some point, depending on your strategy, you'd usually file a provisional patent, generally like a 1-year patent. Depending on the advice, we work with a number of patent attorneys and such, depending on the best kind of strategic advice between your business plan and what the patent attorneys want to strategize. And then you're essentially going to market. We have clients at varying different budgets. So some clients have very little budget, and what we're generally trying to do is get them through the initial design, research, and all that sort of stuff so that they can then go into a funding round, usually after filing that provisional patent. Clients that are a bit more, a little better funded, they would go generally into prototyping. And what they might do at the end of it is either go to crowdfunding or Kickstarter, or even look to get pre-sales through either one of those platforms or online or Amazon or a number of different other ways. Or they're looking to go direct to retailer. So they're taking those kind of prototypes, and we're usually setting up production on the back end as well. And they're going and actually working with either wholesalers, distributors, et cetera, to take on their product to actually start selling through mass retailers, which sometimes can be a much easier approach and a quicker approach than the wait sometimes that it takes for various crowdfunding or other sales avenues. So there's quite a few different ways depending on the type of startup. As you can imagine, in the startup world, we deal with people who are, just regular folks, very limited budget. but they have a great idea. We work with other folks who, have gone through, let's say, an incubator or something like that, or they're engineers themselves, and they just need to, more help going into production or into distribution. And then we have clients that are even much further aligned. They're already into manufacturing, but they're looking to tweak and refine or take kind of an older design and bring it up to 2017 standards. We have quite the range in between. So depending on the type of client, there's very unique and tailored approaches to each of those.
And for someone listening today, I mean, does it start at 10 grand, 20 grand, 5 grand, 500? Where is the starting point? In other words, don't call if you don't have.
Just as a rough idea, for let's call it a medium complexity consumer houseware product, you'd probably be looking at ballpark around $10K for kind of doing your research, design, that sort of stuff, and then prototyping could be, depending on the complexity and physical size of the thing, you can be anywhere from maybe 5 to 50. Obviously, that would be a much more larger, more complicated thing. And then again, it depends on the complexity of the technology too. So if something needs a lot of kind of, it's very experimental, and you're really trying to push the boundaries of technology, you could be doing continual work to try and improve that. But for most people, and for most of our clients, they're not really pushing the boundaries of technology. They're more just taking, sometimes it's two ideas and combining them. Sometimes it's using, one technology from one industry and pairing it with another from another industry. So you're not necessarily creating something new, but you're essentially modifying or combining things that already exist.
If you're not getting the results you want and need, I guarantee no one's holding you accountable. Now, let's face it, who really wants to be held accountable? Not me, right? Nobody. Why would you want to be held accountable? It's not part of our nature. However, if you want to get exceptional results, you must be held accountable. For $95 a month, our team will hold you accountable to those goals that you want to accomplish in any given month. If you don't like it, ask for your money back. But truly, if you're not getting the results, it's because no one's holding you accountable. The only question is, are you willing to step up?
Keep an eye out for part 3 of our interview with Kevin, where he tells us why simple products and businesses have a greater chance for success, and also asks, what's your MVP, minimum viable product? See you next time on Peak Performers Podcast.